I hope that you'll learn something by listening to this story, that not only is God sovereign and He's able to get literature to exactly the right person at the right time, but there's people praying all over the earth, and they're going to get, God's going to answer their prayer by what you've done today. I do pastors' conferences from time to time, all different places around the world. And I was up in a place called Bungoma, Kenya, which was, it's up by the Ugandan border. And I was doing a pastor's conference there. And the day before the pastor's conference was to begin, I was sitting in the pastor's home that was putting it on, and there was a young man that walked in the door. And when he walked in the door, God spoke to my heart, and He said, "That man there is a man of an excellent spirit." And I went, that's interesting. Well, when I go overseas, I always take a great big huge suitcase or a duffel bag full of really nice leather-bound study Bibles. Nice leather-bound, really good stuff. Because most of the pastors overseas, for them to have a nice leather-bound study Bible with all kinds of notes and helps and all those kind of things in it is a dream. I mean, if they could find a Bible like that, it would cost them somewhere between $100 and $150. And when they make $15 a month, that's 10 months' wages. And so they'll never, ever be able to afford a Bible like that. So I take a bunch of them and I give them away as the Lord leads me. So the first day of the pastor's conference, I saw a young man that was sitting across the auditorium from me, a pastor, and he had an old ripped up Bible. He's probably missing half of Genesis, half of Revelation. And so I thought, well, I'll give him this Bible. And so the one I had, and so I started to do that, and I got about halfway, and God said, "Don't do that." So I didn't do that. And just the next time I taught a lesson after I got finished, God spoke to me again. He said, "Have John," remember John was the kid I met the day before? He said, "Have John give that young man his Bible." So I walked over to John. I said, "John, would you do me a favor?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "You see that man that's got the ripped up Bible over there?" "Yes." I said, "Would you give him your Bible?" "Yes." So he had just a little zipper Bible. So he unzipped it and took out his personal notes and went over and gave it to that guy. Oh, when he did, I wanted to give him this Bible, so I started giving this Bible. God said, "Don't do that." I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying to be obedient. So now I feel kind of bad because I made John give his Bible away, and now he's sitting there with an old ripped up Bible, and all day long he sit there with it, He didn't say anything to me, not upset. And then that night, I preached a crusade, and I saw John, and he came in and sat in the second row, and I saw him write his name in the front of that old ripped up Bible. John come out, and I'm feeling like a heel. I'm going, "Oh, jeez, what are you doing, God?" The next morning, I had to get up early, and I had to preach first, teach at the conference, and so I got up and prepared my heart, and I prepared my lesson, and those kind of things. And I had a brown leather zippered cover, and I had a Dakes annotated in there, and I started to zip it up, and God spoke to me. He said, "Put your Thompson chain reference in there." I don't know why, but I took that one out and put my Thompson chain reference in it, and I zipped it up, and I went and taught my first lesson. When I got finished, God spoke to me again. He said, "Now you can give him the Bible." So I walked over to John. I said, "John, I'd like to give you this." He said, "What is it?" I said, "It's a gift. I'd like to give it to you." He sat down, and he unzipped it, and he turned to the front page, and he read these words: "Thompson chain reference, 4th edition, King James Version." And he began to cry. And I'm thinking, well, he's crying because this is like giving him a car or something. I mean, it's like, and he raised his hand. He said, "Oh, no, sir." He says, "You don't understand." He said, "1 year ago, I began to pray." He said, "I want you to see what's number one on the list." And he reached in his coat pocket and he pulled out an envelope and he said, "Here, take a look." I opened it up, pulled out the letter. Number one on the list was the Thompson chain reference, 4th edition, King James Version, in a brown leather, zippered cover. I mean, we jumped up and down and shouted hallelujah and carried on. And he gave testimony to all the pastors. Pray for what you want because God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think, God sent me 8,000 miles and worked on me 3 days in order to get that man what he asked for. Huh? Think God's interested in people all over the earth that's praying today for what we're doing? Absolutely. Well, my wife and I spent a whole week with John, and we just kind of fell in love with him. So we got his name and address because he didn't live in Bungoma. He lived in a place called Mosbridge. And we said, "Listen, We'll send you some literature from time to time, and we just want to bless you in the name of the Lord. And so over the years, we've sent him boxes, ad boxes, you know, small little packages overseas, you know. So I was doing another pastor's conference in a place called Trilogy. And so I looked on the map to see if I could find Mosebridge, and I couldn't find Mosebridge. I didn't know where it was at. So I wrote John a letter and I said, listen, I can't find Mosebridge on the map. I don't know where you're at, but I'm going to be doing a pastor's conference with these folks at this place, Trilogy, at this time. And if you want to see me, I'd like to see you. So I'm doing the pastor's conference. I'm up in front speaking, and all of a sudden John walks in. He's pretty noticeable. He's about 6'7", you know. So he came up and gave me a big hug. Oh, brother, so good to see you. And you know, and we were talking. And he says, oh, you got to come to my house. You've been such a blessing to me and to my family and to my church. He says, you got to. I said, well, how far is it? Oh, it's close. It's just 17 kilometers. You could come over there and you could. I said, okay, we'll go. So we drove over to his place. It's only like 10 miles. And so we drove over to his place. John lives in a 12 by 15 dung hut. Dirt floor, thatched roof. He and his wife and 3 sons. They took me in, set me down on the couch and fed me sweet bread and tea. Treated me like a king. Said, brother, you've been such a blessing to us. He said, I want to show you my pride and joy. And he pointed to 4 shelves of books on the wall. He said, this is the Mosebridge Pastor's Library. These are the books that I got from you. And I went, oh God, that's so good. He said, I just don't let anybody read them. I said, what? He said, oh no. He says, I make sure I know where they live so I get the books back. Does that make sense? And he said, but that's not all. So then he went and got a big spiral notebook and he began to page through it. And there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people's names in it. He said, these are the people that's read those books. I went, oh God. He said, no, that's not all. So then he would page and he would page and he'd say, see this person right here? Now this person here, she was a prostitute. But she read that book right there. And now she's one of my Sunday school teachers. And then he'd page a little bit farther and he said, see these 2 people here? These 2 people here, they hated each other's guts. I mean, they were always getting drunk and beating each other up and getting thrown in jail. They were married, but they hated each other. But they read these 3 books right here. And now their family is sweet. And he'd turn another one and tell me this story and tell me that story. And I'm bawling and boo-hooing and snot's coming out of my nose. You know, I mean, out there in the middle of nowhere in a little dung hut, God was changing hundreds of people's lives by 4 shelves of books that we'd sent. Who would have thought? Huh? Well, John made me promise. He said, the only road that goes to Nairobi, and you got to almost drive right by my house to get to the Nairobi airport, you got to promise me that you'll come and say goodbye to me before you leave. I said, yeah, we can do that. And so we did. You know, after we got finished, we drove to his house. And when we drove into his yard, he was out in a little hammock-type chair. And when he saw us, he jumped up out of the chair and come over and run. And we were giving each other a hug, you know, and we were just talking to each other, you know. Brother, I just, you know, bless you. And I don't know whether I'll ever get back to Africa. I don't know whether I'll get back to this part of Africa or not. I don't know whether I'll ever see you again. But I'll keep sending you some books from time to time. Brother, if I don't see you here, you know, I'll see you in heaven. Huh? And about that time he looked up and he saw 3 women walking on the edge of a clearing on a little goat path. And he yelled, hey! You know the man that sent the Bibles and books? Yeah, this is him! And they hiked their skirt and they ran to where I was at. And when they got there, they grabbed my hands and they began to kiss my hands. And they began to cry. And one lady cried and cried and cried. And she said, I prayed for 4 years that somebody somehow would be able to find me a Bible. And when John got one from you, he gave it to me, and I'm forever grateful. The other 2 ladies said, we didn't have Bibles either until John gave us one. You know, that don't happen to you very often. But when it does, it kind of pierces your heart. What I'm trying to say to you is this. All right, you ready? Everything that we did today, there's somebody praying for that stuff. There's somebody praying saying, God, if I just had anything to teach my children with, if I had anything for my church, God, if you'd make it available. Huh? And you were the answer to that prayer. Huh? You were today. You. And you. Yeah, and even you.